Welcome back before the bell here on MMA Oddsbreaker. Of course, this week it's the big anticipated weight. Really, are we anticipating? Did we really anticipate a second fight between these two because it went so lopsided the first time of Bisping and Henderson? Got to be honest with you, win, lose, or draw. Henderson's last fight. He's retiring after this. For me, it's a big deal. He's one of the guys I started fighting at the same time that he did. We're both together on the Raw team, so Henderson finally retiring is a big deal, whether he comes out the champ or not. But for me, the co-main event, Belfort and Mousasi. Wow, what a matchup this is going to be. Belfort ranked number 5 right now. Mousasi ranked number 9 right now. This is crazy. Of course, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about UFC 204, Saturday, October 8th. Obviously, this is in England. This is a big deal. It's a huge deal for England because they finally have a champ, and Michael Bisping, who said it would happen 9 years ago, 10 years ago. But first, let's break into this co-main event. Man, I have a hard time picking this one. Mousasi's been kind of on a tear, and Belfort always finds a way to fall apart in the big, high-stressful matches, and that's what I think this one is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's a big underdog right now, too. Mousasi's actually minus 340 right now at 5 dimes, and Belfort's plus 280. So minus 340 to plus 280. So sizable favorite for Mousasi in this spot against, like you said, a higher-ranked opponent as well. So I think that tells you pretty much how the fight should play out a little bit. I mean, Mousasi should win this fight, I think, inside the distance, to be honest with you as well. Even though Belfort is game and he's one of the best. I mean, he's a legend. I mean, one of the greatest of all time. I mean, no doubt about that. He's still got lightning in his fists. So you can never count that dude out. So it's tough to bet the line where it is with Mousasi right now. But at the same time, I mean, if I had to pick a winner, obviously it's going to be Mousasi. I think at this point of his career, his wrestling's a little bit better than Belfort. I think, honestly, his submission game probably is better as well. And then the striking, even though Belfort is dynamic, explosive, can put anybody out in the middleweight division, I still give the overall edge, believe it or not, to Mousasi as well. So he just has the check marks across the board. I think it's his time to kind of get that decent win or notch on his resume and then kind of keep moving up the ladder eventually for a title shot.
I really have a hard time picking for Vitor as of late. He tends to change camps all the time. He tends to maneuver his coaches around all the time. He's always looking for that perfect fit. It just seems like he never really accepts the fact that it's him if there's a loss. He never accepts. He always tries to find, it's this coach was the problem. I wasn't strong enough, so I'll move my strength and conditioning coach on. Or my hand speed wasn't fast enough, so I'm going to move my boxing coach on and get somebody else. It's always been one of those situations where he's like, it's always somebody else's problem. When Mousasi loses, like, you'll talk to him right after the fight. He's like, I screwed up. We had a great game plan coming in. I didn't execute it, and I kind of fell apart. And I think that's the real tale of what's going to happen in this fight. But I completely agree with you. Vitor is going to be in the Hall of Fame at one point coming up here pretty soon whenever he decides to retire. He's one of those guys that could fight into his 50s and still maintain with a top 10%. I really do believe that Gegard is going to win this one, even though he is ranked 9th, which is far below Vitor's number 5. I just think matchup-wise, this is going to put Gegard in. So we're both assuming that Mousasi wins this fight. What do you think ranking-wise it will do, being a number 5 guy like Vitor Belfort? Will he jump that much, though, after being a guy like Vitor?
Honestly, I don't have the top 10 list in front of me right now, but I think so. I mean, why not take his spot in a way? You get that W over the number 5 guy. I think it's fair to say that you can kind of deserve that spot, especially with Gegard Mousasi, because honestly, as far as middleweights go, outside of the top maybe 2 or 3 guys, he's right up there, man. And I'm talking about underneath the Jacare, underneath Rockhold, and those guys right there. So he's in line definitely for a title contention. I mean, the guy's that good. And depending on the matchup that he gets, once he does get eventually a title shot, if he makes it that far, man, you never know. That guy could be wearing the strap. So that's how good he is. So I have no problem at all if he gets this W to put him in the top 5. No problem at all.
I agree with it, but I kind of think how the ranking system tends to go. I don't really believe in the ranking system still to date because we're still in a style of the sport where it's matchups make the fights. We've seen it with McGregor and Diaz. Like that, both those fights were amazing, and Diaz almost won both of them. McGregor almost won both of them. So it's like you're watching these fights because stylistically they match up very, very well. This fight, these guys match up very, very well. I would definitely like to see how Gegard does again with the being in the top 5. But I think he's going to get stuck around 7. I think he's only going to get jumped up to 6 or 7, and that's as far as the guys that vote are going to put him up. Even though I believe and you believe that he should be now in a top 5, beating a top 5 guy like Vitor. Let's move on to the main event. Bisping Henderson. We've seen the punch from around the world. We saw the second punch that happened once Bisping was out. It was the hardest he's ever been knocked out, the most devastating loss he's ever had. He's been trying to live it down. There's now commercials on Fox Sports 1 where everyone that's on the analysis team pretty much is a champ, and Bisping is like the spokesperson behind it. that commercial started running maybe a week and a half ago. They're going to have to stop running it come Sunday morning. They just have to stop running because I really do believe that Dan is going to, he's ranked 13. Bisping is the champ. He definitely beat Luke Rockhold fair and square. Whether Luke came in hurt, Luke came in underprepared, Luke came in overconfident. He definitely took the belt away. He deserves to have that belt. He is the champ. But I think Henderson beats him again. Am I wrong in how this thing is breaking down?
You know what, man? Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, he's the underdog. Obviously, Henderson is right now. And at 5dimes.eu right now, it's Bisping minus 230. The comeback on Henderson is plus 190. So I think the line's a little bit high as well. I mean, like you just said in the last fight, matchups make fights. I mean, it doesn't, and this is stylistically actually not a bad matchup for Dan Henderson. Now, the guy, obviously, since their first fight has aged even more so. His chin isn't exactly what it was at one time. I mean, he's still tough as nails. I mean, the guy still has heart. It's still, you can't count him out, but he is definitely not the same fighter that he once was. And Bisping, as far as confidence goes, as far as game plan, everything's a better aspect in his head, his mental game, his actual physical game as well. I think he's a better striker than he was back then, to be honest with you. And right now he's riding high. I mean, beating Rockhold like he did, and having some quality matchups even before that. He's been on a nice little run here. So Bisping definitely deserves to wear the strap. I mean, I think he was due. One of those things. None of us thought Anderson Silva would, give up that strap for a long time. Eventually, it happens or whatnot. So around that time frame, we thought, Bisping's never probably going to end up getting that title. So, I'm glad. He's been one of those guys that's kind of been hovering around that spot for a long time. And realistically, a lot of us thought he probably wasn't going to get there. So he deserves it. He's been in the sport long enough. He's put his time in. And he is a great fighter. I mean, honestly, he's probably one of the best middleweights of all time, even though he's probably not going to get that kind of respect, from the diehards out there, which is unfortunate. But I think he is. I mean, as far as quality fighter, who he's beaten or whatnot, he belongs up there. But you're right, man. All it takes is one bomb from Dan Henderson. And Bisping, the last time they fought, they were telling him, stay away from his right hand. You're walking towards that power. And he kept on doing it. It didn't matter. I mean, they were telling him not to do it. His corner did as well. Didn't make any difference. He walked into it. Now, obviously, this time, I'm sure he's going to circle the other way. He's not going to circle towards his power hand. But better than most. I mean, better than, most of us for sure. Once the fight starts, I mean, you kind of tend to fall back to what you're comfortable with, right? I mean, certain spots you're like, okay, this is my game plan, but man, I just took a couple hard punches. Wait a second. I got to kind of fall into my comfort spot here. And if he does that, man, Henderson can knock him out again. So, I would definitely not lay that juice. I think it's a dog or pass situation.
Over the last 3 fights, we've seen both these guys fight. You and I watch fights every weekend. Like, we feel bad for the wives because we are legitimately backed up Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. Sometimes we're watching fights, and that's all we're doing. We've seen these guys' last 3 fights. If this thing goes to a decision, who do you think wins the decision between Henderson and Bisping?
Probably Bisping, but I'm saying probably. Well, obviously Dan Henderson. Most of us think he's going to slow down. I mean, if it goes 5 rounds. It's interesting to see if he can actually go the 5 strong rounds right now. Probably though, because man, you can't count a guy like Dan Henderson out. I mean, he's Randy Couture. He's under one of those kind of molds. You know what I mean? Those guys are special. I mean, they don't make them like that. I don't know how the guy's still relevant and still getting this shot because, to be honest with you, and he's got a legit shot to win, like we were just mentioning. So I wouldn't count him out exactly, but most of us think he's probably going to slow down enough as it goes 5 rounds that Bisping probably has the edge as far as scorecards goes because I think he is overall the better striker. He's got the more diverse striking game. He's going to move around, kind of outpoint Dan Henderson a little bit, but Dan Henderson's going to be the one stalking forward, putting the pressure on, and it all depends on how judges score fights. I mean, some judges like that pressure fighter, and some judges like the guy that's going to counter, move well and counter. So all depends on the scorecards. I mean, look, we've seen some close decision losses and wins for Henderson when he's pushing forward a little bit, being the aggressor, even though he's getting picked apart a little bit. So we could see that happen. I mean, I find it hard to believe that it does go 5, though, because Bisping, again, he's got a little bit underrated power. He's got more confidence now in his knockout ability. Henderson's chin isn't what it was. So realistically, it should be Bisping actually knocking Henderson out this time. That's what should happen. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
And come January of 2017, when they changed how the judging rules supposed to do, because all the commissions have to be put on the books, have to turn into a law, and then it has to become, this is how now we're going to judge the fights. Like, it's going to be more damage-oriented, even though it's the way it's supposed to be right now. It's going to be official. Like, you have to look at damage more. This fight could go a totally different way now, because you're looking at a guy like Bisping, who's going to, obviously, he's going to have a lot more active. He's going to be a lot more punching. we'll get the punch stats in between each round where, whatever. I'm just making up numbers. Bisping threw 100, Henderson threw 50, but Henderson hit him 50% of the time and Bisping only hit him 20% of the time. But it's just that active. Like, I'm being more active. Is that going to win this fight? Or is Henderson or Bisping getting that big, I bloody your nose, I blacked your eye up, I'm starting to bloody your mouth up? Is that what's going to win this fight? It's very tough to say what's going to happen up there. And it's also interesting to find out who is going to actually be the ref for this one. My guess is, I haven't seen the assignments yet, but my guess is it's going to be Mark Goddard. Which is definitely keep the guys moving and moving. If they hit the ground, it's going to get them back up to their feet, which will make it more of a stand-up war. Unless Henderson gets on top, Bisping's not known for this. But if Bisping gets on top, gets to half, and starts pounding away, it's going to be a long night for Michael. Even though he's not going to get knocked out or get TKO'd from that position, he'll probably survive the round. It does sway a big way in the judges if it happens in the last 45, 30 seconds of the round. Even though he's beating Henderson the first portion of it, Henderson gets on top, starts beating him up, he wins that round. It becomes very questionable now because now you have to get into the mind of, how is this judge going to judge this? What's going to happen if it does go the distance? Personally, I don't think it's going to go the distance if Dan doesn't finish it by the fourth round. I think he fades enough that Bisping's going to be able to finish him. But if it's going to finish early before the fourth round, then it's definitely going to be Henderson. What's the over-under right now on the round finishing?
Right now, it looks like it's 2.5 rounds under -125. So slightly leaning under 2.5 rounds, which means obviously that's about 12.5 minutes or so. I mean, so yeah, it is a long time to go with that much power. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if either one's going to last that long. I mean, like I said, Henderson only needs one punch. I mean, he's proved it before time and time again. And then Bisping, again, I think has a little bit more confidence in his power, and I think he could probably maybe land 2 or 3 shots and put Henderson out. Depending on the referee, like you said, referees do matter quite a bit. I mean, some referees will jump in and stop the fight right away as soon as they see somebody dazed and rocked. That's it. They're not going to let the guy take any more punishment. And then other referees will let the guy maybe take another punch or two to see where he's at. And you know what? We've seen that time and time again as well, where that extra time lets these guys survive, and then they come back into it and they come back alive. You know what I mean? So you just don't know how it's going to play out. But referees definitely impact the fight.
Full disclosure, I reffed the X1 match was this last weekend here in Blaisdell in Hawaii, and I had an event where I knew the guy. I knew both guys. I knew them very well, how they fought, and I let a couple more punches come in after the guy was down because I thought for sure he was going to be able to sit back up and sit to a single or at least start to defend himself and get back in the guard, whatever, and had to jump in and stop it. And it is definitely, when I got off and I started talking to the refs on the team, and I was like, yeah, it really is up to, because some of the refs were like, oh, it stopped as soon as he hit him and he fell down. Like, would have jumped in right away. And the other guy was like, oh, you stopped it too soon. So I literally had one ref go stop it sooner, and another ref go, let it go longer in the same night. In the same night, we're all reffing that night. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So this is it definitely comes out the interpretation of the referee and where things go and how things happen. And it is. I've always said this, and Herb Dean and I talk about this quite a bit, that you have to know the ref. Like I'm the one who told him, like, when you're reffing, I know what I'm going to get. When Mario Yamazaki's reffing me, I know what I'm going to get. When Bijan McCarthy's reffing me, I know what I'm going to get. It's steady. Mark Goddard, I know what I'm going to get because they're steady. They do the exact same thing every single time they fight or every time they ref a match. And that's important to the fighter as well, knowing what is going to happen. It's not we actually have to know the assignments. Who's the guy that we have? Who's going to be the guys going to be the third man in the booth? I got to make sure that his style is going to fit my matchup for this particular fighter.
Yep. Yeah, it does make a huge impact. And it is good. Like you said, if you know what kind of referee you have, if he's going to, and it does make a difference, man. I mean, that extra time, sometimes letting somebody survive and take a couple more shots and they wake up. I mean, a lot of times they come back and win a fight. It's crazy how that goes, where you're thinking, man, that should have been stopped. And the guy ended up winning the fight. But obviously he left them enough time where it wasn't necessarily a bad let go. You know what I mean? And it wasn't bad for them to let it go. So all depends here. I think obviously we don't want to see, If Dan Henderson knocks Bisping out, we don't want to see what happened last time, though. That extra shot, that was ridiculous.
I don't care. And I actually get mad because I'm on social network quite a bit. I get mad at the guys who are like, oh, yeah, I want to see Henderson do the same thing to Bisping again. That's like that kind of damage you can't come back from. It takes a long time to come back from that kind of damage. And I hope if it happens, and it's a fight, so guys are going to get damaged, guys are going to get hurt, we're going to get hit. It's just what goes on. That I hope if Bisping does get knocked out, or if Henderson gets knocked out, it's a clean knockout. Referee gets in there, fast as possible, stops the fight, and neither one has to take any more damage than necessary. Because the way that Bisping went out the first time, he was completely knocked out, and he got hit again with a full bodyweight forearm across his face. Like, I don't care what anybody says. That took him a good 6-8 months to recover from that punishment. Your brain just doesn't heal as fast as the rest of your body does. It takes a long time. I don't want to see either one of these two warriors get hurt, but I do want to see a great, amazingly hard fight. My picks are Henderson and Mousasi on this one, but where should I actually lay my money?
Man, it's tough because, like I said, right now, I mean, I would think I don't know exactly what the number is out there for Mousasi inside the distance, but maybe Mousasi inside the distance, I would look at that a little bit because you're going to get cheaper than minus 340. So I would go that route with it because it is tough to lay minus 340 against Belfort's knockout power. So a lower price is definitely good in there, or doesn't go the distance type of thing there. And then Bisping and Henderson, same thing. I would take either a prop at Henderson by knockout, or I would take Bisping inside the distance depending as well, because I mean, or you just let it go and just watch the fight and see how it plays out. There's no way I would lay 230 on Michael Bisping right now over Dan Henderson's power. A lot of people will think I'm crazy. A lot of people believe it's going to be an easy fight for Bisping, but you know what? Henderson, this is his last fight. He is a warrior. He is an intelligent fighter. I mean, he's proved, again, father time wrong. He's proved us all wrong time and time again when we thought, no way, this guy can win this fight. He's done or whatever. And he's done it. So I will never count Dan Henderson out, especially with that power. There's no way. So, yeah, I would. It's a dog or pass situation there. I do think that Bisping's probably going to get the nod here. So it makes it a little bit tough and tricky. So I would go with the props here. I wouldn't lay either fight straight. I would check the props out and try to get some distance props. Like I think Mousasi does stop Vitor Belfort, and I think that Bisping probably stops Henderson, or if you get a great number on Henderson by knockout or inside, go that route for sure.
You know, I just realized something as you were talking, Nick, that this is as far if Henderson follows what he said he's going to do, this will be the last time that you and I will break down a Dan Henderson fight. This is it. We're talking about a guy, whether he wins, loses, or draws this fight, definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame. Definitely one of the most storied careers, inside the ring, cage, because, ring in pride and cage in the UFC. Like, what an amazing individual, and gets to go out. Honestly, if anybody can go out this way, this is the way to do it. Underneath your own terms, saying this is my last fight, but also it's for a title fight. I get the title, it's going to be vacated immediately because I'm walking away, I'm out. So you're going to immediately have to have a unification belt or interim belt or whatever the hell they want to do. But, man, what a storied career. What an amazing job. And honestly, no better opponent for right now in Dan's career, no better person to go after to be the guy right now other than Michael Bisping. What a great matchup and a great way for Dan to walk off from the sunset.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's hard not to pull for Henderson. So, I hope he does it. That'd be great. That's storybook ending. You know what I mean? So, and he deserves it. I mean, he deserves it definitely. So I would feel bad for Bisping, though. I mean, honestly, I would feel terrible for him because, again, I think he deserves where he's at right now as well. But, I mean, he's still, even Bisping's had a great career, but it doesn't match up to what Henderson has done, throughout his career either. So it's pretty impressive.
If Bisping wins and Dan goes, you know what, I'm going to stay around for one more time for the rubber match. I'm not leaving until I get one more fight. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But
yeah, I doubt that happens. But yeah, you never know. The sport's crazy, right? So you never know.
Well, that's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. This is Before the Bell. You've been watching us here on MMA Oddsbreaker. Make sure you check in every day for all your updates and how the fights are going, how the fight breakdowns are, and where you should lay your money when you're laying your bets. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll definitely talk to you guys next week.